The deal to screen cheating husband! I could hardly believe my eyes, and I looked again and again to be sure. Without a doubt, it was Marcia, and the man who was with her was not her husband. Carefully pulling out my cell phone, I took a picture of the two of them, clearly showing where his hand was. A minute later, I got a shot of them leaning into each other and kissing. Another shot of her hand resting on his leg. Then I put my phone away and just sat and watched. After 15 minutes, they got up and started to leave, and that's when Marcia saw me, and I saw the blood rush from her face. The man said something and then took her hand and led her away. I saw her look back at me nervously, and then they walked away. I wondered what the odds were that I would catch Marcia fooling around with Bill. I was in an area of town I rarely visited, at a restaurant I had never been to before, and this was on an evening when I could usually be found bowling 2 miles away. I had spent the day with a client from out of town and had to take him to the airport after lunch. At the last minute, he decided to call the airline and reschedule his flight. He had a friend he hadn't seen in years who lived on the other side of town. They finally stopped playing the phone game, got in touch, and my client was invited to dinner. He asked me if I would mind taking him to a friend's house. He had just given me $500,000 worth of business, so what was I supposed to say? No. I called Tony and told her not to host a dinner for me, called Lou, the captain of my bowling team, and told him he had to arrange a replacement for me, and then I chased Harry to his friends. I was invited inside and had a drink with Harry, his friend Sam, and Sam's wife, and then bowed out and headed home. I remembered that I had asked Tony not to hold dinner for me, so when I saw the restaurant, I walked in. The hostess seated me at a table, and as I picked up a menu, I saw Marcia sitting 6 feet away from me. She and the man were so engrossed in each other that they didn't even notice me. I had known Marcia and her husband Bill for a little over 11 years. Marcia was my wife's best friend, and I met her when I started dating Tony. I met Bill one night when he and Marcia were out alone with Tony and me. 7 months later, Bill and Marcia were married and Tony was a bridesmaid, and when Tony and I wed a year later, Marcia returned the favor. Married life was not the cause of Tony and Marcia's estrangement from each other. I don't think there was a fortnight that we didn't have dinner with Bill and Marcia, or a Saturday or Sunday barbecue with them. At least once a month we went to parties with them, and a couple times a month Tony and Marcia had a girls' night out. In all these years, I had never once noticed any indication that there might be trouble in Bill and Marcia's marriage. When I got home that evening, I told Tony that we hadn't seen Bill and Marcia in a while, and she replied that Bill had been out of town on business for 3 weeks and wouldn't be back for another 2. It was another 3 weeks before I saw Marcia again. Bill came home and Tony invited them over for a barbecue. An hour after they arrived, Marcia caught me alone in the house. "Have you told anyone about that night?" "No, not yet." "Not yet? What do you mean, not yet?" "I haven't talked to Bill yet because he wasn't home." "Please don't tell him, Rob. Please don't." "I don't know, Marcia. Bill is a really nice guy and he doesn't deserve what you're doing to him." I wasn't going to tell anyone anything. I wasn't even going to mention it to Tony, but Marcia didn't know that. I was just pulling her chain a little. That all changed when Marcia said, "Please, Rob, don't tell him. I'll make sure you keep quiet." I immediately jumped on her. "How will you make you worth my effort?" "I'll do anything you want, Rob. Just don't tell Bill." "So if I tell you to follow me into the bathroom and we'll have sex, you'll do it?" "If that's what you need to keep my secret." "What if I throw a poker party and ask you to entertain the guys?" "Anything, Rob, anything. Just please don't tell me." "I'll think about it for a while and then get back to you." "Please, Rob, I'm begging you. Don't tell Bill." Talk about a bad deal. Marcia was a stone fox, and any man in his right mind would want a piece of her. But I was completely loyal to Tony, so getting a taste of Marcia was out of the question for me. But that didn't mean I wouldn't find a way to take advantage of her offer and keep myself quiet. Marcia called me at work on Monday, and I arranged to meet her for lunch at the Hilton. I chose the Hilton because it was a 3-minute walk from my office, and it had a nice restaurant. But Marcia came in thinking, I had gotten a room where she could pay me back for my silence. I'm sorry, honey, but I'm a loyal guy, so even though how tempting you are, I won't cheat on Tony. Too bad. I was kind of looking forward to it. You do know that if I'd seen you first, Tony would never have gotten you, right? No, I didn't even know you were interested, but it worked out for the best. Oh? If you had seen me first, you would have cheated on me instead of Bill. Which brings us to why we're here. I've decided to remain silent, but I'm holding you to your offer to make it worth my while. I don't know what it will be or when it will be, but you owe me. I keep my promises, Rob. Yes, I thought. Just like when you promised Bill to love, honor, and keep only him. A few years passed and life got busy. I had problems at work that needed to be solved and problems in my personal life. Tony and I were having problems and I didn't understand what was wrong, but it seemed to me that we were somehow estranged from each other. We weren't fighting or arguing. We were still making love 2 or 3 times a week. But something was missing. Something was a little off. In all the busyness, I had completely forgotten that Marcia owed me, and then one day Harv King came into my office and said, "We've got a problem, Rob." What's wrong? The girl we arranged Tim's bachelor party with just called and canceled. She broke her leg skiing and I couldn't find a replacement for her. I told Harv I would see what I could do and get back to him. I made a few calls that went nowhere, and then I remembered Marcia and called her. "It's time, honey. I'm calling about something you owe me. Would you mind meeting me for lunch?" There was silence on the other end for a second or so, and then she said, "You're not serious, are you?" "Of course I'm serious. Meet me at the Hilton at noon?" "I guess I'll have to." "Okay. See you then." She wasn't happy when she sat down across from me, but I hadn't expected her to be. "I was hoping you were being a nice guy and decided to let it go." "Well, I'm not. We had a deal and I honored it. I told you the last time we had lunch here that someday I would call in a debt, and that day has come." "What do you want?" I explained the situation to her and said, "I want you to take the place of the girl who broke her leg." What was she supposed to do? A dance for the guys, a lap dance for the groom, and then sex. You can't be serious. You expect me to have sex with some guy I've never met? Remember the barbecue where you said you'd do whatever it took to make it worth my while? You said, "Whatever you say, Rob, just don't tell Bill." You agreed then, and now you're going to whine about one potential suitor? Are you really going to make me do this? A deal's a deal, Marcia. I saw something change in her eyes, and then she said, "Just one guy, right? I won't have to do the others?" They'll probably want to, but no, you don't have to listen to them. Would the girl who was supposed to be there take them on? More than likely, after all. That's how she makes her money. Hey, makes money? How does she do it? She gets $500 for the lap dance and whatever she does for the groom. How many will be there? 8 or 9. So I get $500 for the groom and up to $200 for the others? I can make over $2,000 on this deal, but you expect to get me for free, don't you? I told you, Marcia. I'm not cheating Tony. I'll be there, but I won't participate. I guess I don't have a choice. Okay, give me a time and place. I'm okay with the groom, but I don't know about the rest. I'll have to think about it. On my way back from lunch, I stopped by Harry's office and told him I had taken care of the girl for the party. The night of the party, Marcia showed up at Harry's apartment looking like $1 million. I thought, and not for the first time, that it was a shame that I had been rigidly programmed from the factory to be a faithful husband. Marcia surprised me with a kiss on the cheek and then said, "I've decided to live out one of my favorite fantasies. I've always loved the idea of being a cheater, so tonight I'm going to do it with anyone who wants to. Admittedly, I'm a little hesitant to do 8 or 9, so I'll have someone come over later to help me. Don't worry, lover. She's insanely beautiful and won't disappoint guys. Come on, let's get the party started." A chair was placed in the middle of the room, and Tim was led over to it. The music started playing, and Marcia, swaying, stood in front of Tim, then slowly undressed. First her blouse, then her skirt. All eyes were on her fantastic body as she stepped forward. "Breathe deeply, sweetie," Marcia murmured as she knelt down in front of him. Tim's hands reached up and touched Marcia's breasts. While Tim fondled her breasts, she undid the buttons on his shirt and then tilted her head and licked his body. "Do you want this, baby?" she asked, reaching for his belt. "Oh, God, yes," he said. The guys around me were watching and commenting on what was happening, and they all agreed that they couldn't believe their luck that I had someone so gorgeous, so sexy to have fun with. Next, she did Tim what he asked, and then she turned to the room and said, "If anyone else is interested, let's get the party started." The words hadn't even made it out of her mouth yet, and Harv was already lining up behind her. She moved back to Tim's body, and Harv started having sex with her, and the party started. Harry and Russ entered the room carrying the mattress and laid it down in the middle of the living room. George helped Marcia off the chair, brought her over to the mattress, put her on her hands and knees, and started having sex with her. Harry knelt down in front of her, and she did as he asked, and then all the men except me started having sex with her one by one. I wanted to be a part of what was happening to Marcia. I needed to be a part of it. But I had made a promise the day I married Tony, and I was a man of my word. I was on my way to the bathroom when there was a knock on the door, and Marcia pulled away from Derek to speak. "My assistant is in there. Someone let her in." I saw Jason heading for the door and continued on to the bathroom. The bathroom door was about to close when I heard a faint voice say, "Which ones can I take?" I smiled, thinking that at least Marcia had asked a player to come help her. Normally I would have bolted when the dancer started, but I promised Marcia I'd stay and be her protector, but I'll be damned if I'm going to walk around and not watch it. I excused myself, cleaned up, and headed back to the party. When I entered the room, Marcia was with Jason, and when I returned, she was watching the door and smiling. It seemed like she was sitting there waiting for me to return. Turns out she was. The smile was not because she was happy to see me, but because she was pleased with herself for what she had done to me. She was grinning from ear to ear when it hit me. Her assistant was my wife, Tony. I froze in place as I watched the scene. Tony was standing on her hands and Butch was having sex with her. Tony was busy minding her own business and didn't notice me. I walked over to Marcia, who smiled at me and said, "She looks good with 2 guys, don't you think? You should see her with 3. The night is just getting started. Maybe you'll see her before this party is over." "Why, Marcia? Why did you do it?" "You just couldn't be a nice guy. I don't like being forced into anything, but you just forced me into it and I had to get back at you." "You didn't tell her I'd be here?" "No. Tony was already looking for a way to leave you, so I just helped her. I hope you're happy knowing you'll be divorced very soon." "Be serious, Rob. It's been 3 years and you still haven't said a word to Bill. He won't believe you now. Maybe he would have then, but not now. It's my word against yours and he loves me." "But it's not just my word against yours, Marcia." I pulled out my cell phone, pressed the appropriate buttons, and took a couple quick shots of her having sex with Jason, then showed her the pictures from 3 years before that I'd never deleted. I saw her face go pale. I stepped away from her and walked over to Tony and stood there taking picture after picture until she looked up and noticed me. Then I took another picture of her shocked expression, and then I went to the bathroom and threw up. Both women were trying to change their clothes when I came out of the bathroom and walked across the apartment heading for the door. Marcia was crying, "Wait, Rob, please wait," and Tony was just crying. I made it home, packed my bag, and was about to walk out the front door when Tony's car pulled into the street. She flew into the driveway, jumped out of the car, and ran to me, dropping it as she went. "What are you doing? Where are you going? Don't leave, Rob, we need to talk." I walked past her without saying a word, got in my car, and went to find a motel room. The next week, Harry told me that as soon as I got out, Tony lashed out at Marcia for bringing her to a party where Marcia knew I was going to be, and that was the first any of them knew Tony was my wife. From what I understand, they haven't spoken to each other since. Marcia lied, but she didn't take the pictures, and Bill threw her out. The divorce was very difficult, with Marcia fighting to keep it out and Bill fighting to keep it in. I came out of it in a bad way when I had to go to court and admit that I forced Marcia to have a bachelor party. But the fact remained that she did, and the pictures I took showed that it wasn't the first time she had cheated on Bill. In the end, Bill won, but he lost. He got a divorce, but he ended up having to pay attorney fees and court costs. He was able to free up his pension and 401k, but everything else was split in half. I don't know how my divorce will turn out. I didn't bother to get an attorney and file the papers, and as far as I know, neither did Tony. I haven't filed the papers because I don't care enough to fight. Why pay attorneys and court fees if you don't need to? If Tony wants to hire a lawyer, she can go ahead, but I made sure she had nothing to hang on to. The morning after the party, I canceled all credit cards, cleaned out the accounts and the safe. I know a judge can order me to pay the money back, but telling me to do it and making me do it are two different things. If I'm willing to sit in jail on contempt charges and not give Tony a dime, there's nothing they can do to me. I closed my 401 deposit and had to pay a 10% penalty, but I figured it was cheaper than seeing Tony get half of that money in the divorce. The only thing of value is the house, and I stopped making payments on it. Tony doesn't make enough to make the payments, so eventually the house will be foreclosed on. Tony called me 3 or 4 times a day, but it took 3 weeks before I returned her call, and even then I only told her to stop bothering me, and then hung up on her. I got several calls from her parents wondering why I had left her and wasn't talking to her. I finally told them that after catching her having sex with another man, I had nothing to talk to her about, and they stopped calling. My sister called and said she had talked to Tony. She loves you, Rob, and knows you can get things back to normal if you just sit down and talk to her. I told my sister to stay out of my personal affairs unless she wanted me to start hanging up on her. As soon as I broke up with Tony, word started to get to me about Tony and Marcia's bachelorette parties. It seemed my wife had become as much of a cheater as Marcia. That explained the fact that I felt out of place when it came to Tony. The only question I really had was about Marcia's statement made at the party. Tony is looking for a way to dump you, so I just helped her. The only way to get an answer to that question is to talk to Tony. And I don't want to know the answer bad enough to do that. Maybe in 10 years or so, but not now. The end. Subscribe to my channel. Thank you.